This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Quiet Riot.
Hello, Quiet Rioters. This is Alexandro flying solo today. Is it time for the government to just turn off Twitter in the UK? I wanted to record a very short episode, really just to tease out some of the issues around this, with my hat as a former regulator on, which some of you may know was my career for about a decade. Which objections are valid, which are not. So, I posted a screen grab yesterday of Musk suggesting that the UK Prime Minister was not interested in keeping all people safe. And Andrew Tate's brother, Tristan, currently in Romania charged with rape and human trafficking, jumped on board to voice his support by saying that we have seen in South Africa what happens when a government turns its back on whites. And I asked the question, is this now getting to the stage where turning off Twitter is the only solution? This was met with an avalanche of freshly minted blue tick Elon fans telling me that I am variously a communist, a Nazi, a snowflake, in among a tsunami of homophobic and racialized slurs, to the extent that I had to protect my account and started genuinely to migrate content and followers onto Blue Sky for the first time. There is no talking to bots and trolls effectively employed as Musk's Praetorian Guard, of course, but maybe they have a point, so I started to think through the issues. Would I still be uncomfortable if Jack was doing this to Boris Johnson? I think I would be. Contrary to what the online trolls think, I don't know any liberals that want a platform that reflects only their values and views. And I know this because I know most read right-wing papers, blogs, but I do want a site that has some basic standards which are evenly and fairly enforced. The algorithm of late has been a hellscape. I barely get to see any content that I want nowadays. All it pushes is far-right contrarianism and race baiting. The first responses to everything are the farm trolls. Twitter's community guidance, I refuse to call it X, you notice. It's been a joke for a while, but recently it is just off the scale. A friend reported the following tweet recently. "The Jews are next to be expelled. You caused this, you dirty effing J. You and all your people are the problem and have been for generations." He reported it. The response came back. "Hello, after reviewing the available information, we determined there were no violations of X's rules in the content you reported." And even after all of this, one could say, just leave. You don't have to use the platform. And I think that would be absolutely fair. That is why I had never called for anything so draconian before. But there is a new strand to this now. Criminal elements like the Tate brothers or Stephen Yaxley Lennon, aka Tommy Robinson, who actually jumped bail and absconded from the UK court system, are sitting outside this country's borders, actively encouraging people to overthrow democracy. They are inciting hatred, they are inciting violence against the police, and this will, I have no doubt, result in something even more serious than we have seen up until now. And that is, at the very least, destroying the lives of a load of gullible young people who will end up with a criminal record, while Yaxley suns himself at a 4-star resort in Cyprus. At what point do we protect ourselves as a country? In America, land of the First Amendment, legislation has been passed that TikTok must either be sold or banned by a certain deadline, because the Chinese government, the Americans say, has a controlling interest. 50% of Americans, not famous for their tolerance of illiberalism, they support the ban. Some of the staunchest advocates of free speech in the UK supported, nay, cheer-led the ban of Russia Today, the television station, in the context of the war in Ukraine. Makes sense, right? We wouldn't have allowed Vermacht FM during the war. That would just be idiotic. Those same free speech champions actually made the case for new legislation to be passed that would proscribe the purchase of media assets, in this case the Telegraph and the Spectator, by a consortium funded by the United Arab Emirates. If we accept then that it is harmful for foreign states, especially seen as hostile, to have any stake in the ways in which we disseminate information in this country, because the potential to exploit, to twist, to misinform, and the risk that creates is just too large, why are we so relaxed about foreign individuals with plainly political agendas, explicitly personal anti-democratic agendas? The country, remember, just had an election. Musk holds no oversight role in a constitutional setup. Why are we okay with them operating in this space? Are we saying that Wehrmacht FM would be a problem, but if Hitler's rich buddy wanted to pump a program through our airwaves that advised people to turn on their lights during blackouts or actively coordinate the activity of spies in this country, that would be dandy. That, in my view, does not figure. The notion that we should allow this poison to flow into our country from abroad is not something that makes any sense to me. 3 years ago, Ofcom's remit was extended to cover video sharing platforms. The Online Harms Bill comes into force very soon. It explicitly covers incitement of hatred and harassment of groups. I'm not saying that Twitter should be banned. I'm saying that if, as a country, we decide these are the laws and these are the rules, then all companies operating within the UK should abide by those laws and respect those rules. And having someone who ignores them with total impunity by virtue of his wealth should simply not be allowed. The ultimate sanction being, you can no longer operate in this country. It's what we would do if a bank decided to ignore our banking regulations and money laundering laws. It's what we would do if a foreign retail chain decided to stop paying people the minimum wage and employ slaves instead. It's what we would do if a foreign newspaper decided to defame people it didn't like and then just stick 2 fingers up at the court and keep publishing. And I do not understand why the befuddlement of technology causes people to somehow think that a tech firm should be above these basic principles of the rule of law. I don't understand why this profoundly damaged, very powerful, very sad man should be allowed to have his temper tantrum about having a trans child that he loathes in the most public and destructive way imaginable at the expense of our community cohesion, our economy, our political health. And I say this with some peril to myself, because without Twitter, this fledgling podcast into which I have put everything will have no way of reaching you. Professionally, for us, that would be a disaster. But there it is. Anyway, I've said my piece. If you appreciate these bonuses, please take a couple of minutes to subscribe to the podcast and say something nice about it on social media. Being a well-kept secret won't pay for a less squeaky chair for me. And if you disagree with me, please email us at quietriotpod@gmail.com and let me know why. Thank you. See you next time.
Quiet Riot.